Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 716 Sports Podcast. That's our Twitter handle, 716 Sport Podcast.
Yeah, character limits are fun.
Yeah, and it's good to go that route immediately because with all the news happening in Buffalo sports, we'd actually like to start off with something that's super important, and that's our own Jeff Boyd will be joining Pat Moran for the Moranalytics podcast. Definitely a friend of our podcast. We've been on his show. He's had us... well, wait a minute. We've been on his show. He's been on our show.
He's been on our show many, many times.
Yeah, doing recurring segments. And Jeff had the opportunity to talk with him, and that podcast will drop this morning, Tuesday morning, while you're listening to this one. Slide on over to the Moranalytics podcast to hear Jeff chat with Pat Moran, a Buffalo guy who's down in Florida who covers Buffalo sports, WWE, the Yankees, 80s music, everything like that. But we are grateful for the partnership that we have with Pat Moran. Jeff, awesome that you got to have a conversation with him. And people have taken notice already because Pat gave you a pretty good shout out on Twitter. We're proud of you, buddy.
Well,
good stuff, Jeff.
Well, thank you. And it was very kind of Pat to say that. And the response has been a little overwhelming. But if you can listen to Pat's show now, so it's not really as much of a secret by the time this releases, is that I'll be joining that podcast as a occasional correspondent to talk about random stuff with Pat. So not like on a weekly basis or anything like that, but every once in a while I'll be jumping in there to help out with that show, which is awesome.
He's changing the title to the Morana Jeffalytics podcast.
He is definitely not doing that because it doesn't roll as well.
Okay. Did you pitch it though?
I'm going to give it a couple more episodes before I try to get my name in the title.
All right, I'll pitch it to him for you. I'll be your representative.
But you got to find something that flows better.
Yeah, for sure. This episode today, we will catch up with FC Buffalo forward Kieran Toland on the score sheet again this week, this time from the penalty spot after a couple of goals last week.
Truly 1.5 goals for Kieran.
Yeah, the own goal that he centered, that he crossed into the middle, that got pounded in by the Erie
I didn't
defender.
notice when I was watching the game live, I went back and watched the replay, that defender absolutely fucking drilled that into the back of the net.
He laid out
every little bit of his might.
Yeah.
He's crushed it.
So a big 2-0 win for FC Buffalo over the rival Erie Commodores. If we remember right, Jeff, last year FC Buffalo opened up a 3-0 lead on FC Buffalo and had a 3-2 lead into stoppage time.
And lost that game.
And then Erie scored in like the 91st minute and then again in the 94th minute or something.
It feels like a different Buffalo team than the last couple of years. They've always taken a very long time to get their stride, and it's always been too late. And you look at the opening result, the 4-0 loss at Rochester, and you start thinking, oh, man, I don't know about this. But the last two games have been back. Maybe it's being home field, or as we'll talk to Kieran about, maybe just getting everyone back playing together, the full roster. They have been excellent, up 7-0 over their past two opponents, and Pittsburgh comes in this Friday, and they are struggling mightily, so a big chance for Buffalo to keep that going. It'll be a 7 p.m. kickoff at All High Stadium. We'll talk to Kieran about all that here in a little bit. But guys, it's our first time getting back together since Jeff Skinner denied what we thought was going to happen. Instead of signing on Tuesday, he signed on Friday. And finally, the much-awaited, suspense-filled negotiations between the Buffalo Sabres and Jeff Skinner are laid to rest in the direction that we all wanted. Jeff Skinner, 8 years, 9 per, back to Buffalo.
Even if not everybody wanted it, it's the direction we all expected.
I hope so.
There's a part of me that almost expected them to botch it completely. When Bob McKenzie tweeted out a couple of weeks ago that it was basically the Sabres know what Jeff Skinner expects to be paid, I thought it would be done. And every day that went on that there was no news or negative news, we heard reports coming out Friday early that, if it doesn't get done this weekend, I don't think it gets done at all. And that was really discouraging. So needless to say, when I finally got the alert on my phone from whichever one of you it was that sent it to me at 10-ish on Friday night, it felt like a huge wave of relief because I was waiting for the typical Buffalo fatalist thing, which is they tried to shortchange a star player and ended up with nobody.
Well, yeah, I heard from somebody I know that conversation was like the last ditch effort, and then that was it, and ended up they weren't getting done it, and you can tell they were really talking late in the night because it came out at 10 o'clock at night. So that was pretty crazy. I guess it came down to the wire.
I mean, Justin, you mentioned something, too, that I think is true. It looked like part of that holdup, and you look at the full details of the contract, part of the holdup might be the no-movement clause, the full no-movement clause.
I was saying in our Slack that the holdup's got to be on the Sabres' end where he wants a no-movement of some sort, and the Sabres don't want it. And sure enough, there's a full no-movement clause, which when you got a guy, it could be 35 or 34 with his contract.
Yep.
That's tough.
Well, and the buyout numbers are friendly though, right? Like $2 million a year or something. The number is pretty
like
friendly.
$3 million.
$3 million a year.
Yeah. So, but at any point, like my thought is, we don't know what the conversations look like or how they went, but in any negotiation, after X amount of time, it's like, well, screw it. Like, it can be you arguing with your wife over what's for dinner. And at a certain point, you're just going to go grab a bowl of cereal and be like, F this. Like,
Yeah.
And who knows how many conversations went on between Sabres management and Jeff Skinner's agent, but we know it's been at least a couple of weeks. And at some point, it was like, something's got to give. Either you're going to give us what we want, and Skinner certainly had leverage. 40 goals will do that on a team that struggled on the ice. And, you know, I didn't blame his agent for saying, you know what, if this doesn't get done, guess what? We're going to test the market where 30 other teams are going to make an offer.
Yeah, the benefit of hindsight, it really does feel to me like Skinner's camp or his agent told Bob McKenzie what number they were looking for and to put it in the Sabres court. He's like, this is what he wants. And Sabres fans could talk about it. They could be like, well, that's not too bad, and pressure the team, or we could just outright all reject it. But I think they
that definitely
they felt the
happens.
pressure.
Oh yeah, that definitely happens. They just definitely work the media for fan support, blah blah blah. But you know, the tweet that pissed me off this weekend was Harrington's tweet saying the reaction in St. Louis teams are laughing at the Sabres. That's bullshit, because like I'm sure teams are maybe, but like players like that in this day free agency, players like that don't get to free agency. It's very rare. He would have got paid 10.
Someone would have.
Someone would have paid
Well, I mean,
him
the
10.
Arizona-
comparable is Mark Stone at 9.5 for Vegas, I think.
Yeah, but he gets 80-something points. I mean,
Yeah, but he doesn't get 40 goals.
yeah.
And you know what?
Goal, and goals coming to premium. Go ahead, Mike.
And no, that's back to your point about Harrington. You know what? If the Sabres failed to sign him, the team would be a laughing stock because Botterill failed to close the deal. So no matter what happened, Harrington was going to find a way to poo-poo this whole thing.
I mean, it's the old Buffalo News reporters. It's Harrington still being Sullivan. There's negativity for the sake of negativity.
Oh, yeah.
And I think part of that, too, there's a part of the Buffalo fan base that is very much like that. Like, they would have been unhappy if they didn't sign Skinner. They would have been they're unhappy now. They paid Skinner $9 million a year. If Skinner doesn't put up 40 goals, they're going to be the first person to tell you when Skinner has one of those traditional 10-game goal droughts, which he has for his entire career. He's a very, very streaky goal scorer. It's no surprise. I mean, he had 1 in 22 at one point. He was on during the 10-game winning streak. He was absolutely
10 goals.
unstoppable.
10 goals in those 10 games. But he also, there's like 2 players in the NHL in the last 3 years who have been better at 5-on-5 scoring than him. It's like Austin Matthews and maybe Crosby or something. Like, he's up there. So there's a player in the NHL that had last year 31 goals and 39 assists and will probably make 10 this year. Matt Duchene.
I mean, yeah.
If he hits UFA, is Matt making 10?
I don't think so. I mean,
No?
probably around 8.5.
You think so?
Probably, yeah.
Even after that playoff performance, someone's not going to pay him. I don't know.
Duchene's so interesting because he's everywhere he leaves, the team becomes better, which is a weird thing to say. And he did have a really good first round for Columbus, which might change that narrative a little bit. But you look at like he wanted out of Colorado, and the second he gets his way and they build around other pieces, they became a playoff team again. So I don't know that I see Matt Duchene making more money than Jeff Skinner. The only reason that he might is because I think centers are typically worth a little bit
And
more
I don't
than
think
wingers.
anybody's going to say, well, Skinner made 9, because they're going to look at his playoff performance. They're going to look at, I agree that he's a center. I would not be surprised. And what you said, you're like, oh, teams won't pay him more than 8.5. All it takes is 1. If one team out there looks at their cap space and says, we want this guy, and it doesn't matter that it's going to cost us $10.5 million because we have it, Matt Duchene is a $10.5 million player because someone is willing to pay it.
If you have the space and you value the player enough, it doesn't
You don't
matter
care
to
how
you
much
if
it
you
costs.
overpay.
Hey guys,
Correct.
you know who has a lot of cap space?
The Islanders.
The Buffalo Sabres.
The Buffalo
There's like
Sabres.
24, 25 million left, I think.
Yeah, before
And now
this
you
deal, they
obviously
were.
don't want to tie it all up in long-term deals because then you're putting yourself in a terrible spot when you want to get Sam
I believe
extended. And
Skinner
Rasmus.
puts them
Dahling's gonna
$1
get a
million
couple
over
years.
the floor.
Yeah.
Skinner puts them $1 million over the cap.
Yeah, they were
floor.
well under the floor before this deal went through.
Should I pull up a website, or do you want to get the basketball game
Good
on?
pull up, friendly.
Give it some time. Yeah, and I think people are kind of balk at the Skinner contract because $9 million is a lot of money, but it's more money 2 years ago. But the cap is so high
Right.
now.
Will
Like
it be-
it's 82 ish? I hear 83, I hear 82, I hear 81. Let's say 82.
Yeah.
What was the cap a few years ago?
65.
Yeah.
Like,
What was out of the lockout? I think the cap. I think the cap was like 56 or 60.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's going to continue to rise
Because of the
too.
expansion teams, all that generated revenue.
One of my favorite points of this like I see out there is you got to look at the percentage of cap.
Right.
And someone posted that Vanek's hit years ago was like 14.1% of the cap.
And now
Skinner's only
Jack
like
and
10.
Skinner together are like 22.
Worth it.
I mean, for two cornerstone players that you figure you can put any third guy on the line, I mean, that is what you hope you're going to be able to bring in a guy. I mean, what has Pittsburgh done? Pittsburgh or Chicago, they pay 2 or 3 really top guys, and then
fill
they
in.
find
Subsidize.
other guys. I
Yep.
mean, Artemi Panarin was a fill-in guy. Brian Rust for Pittsburgh, or Dumoulin, or Jake Gensel. I mean, the next step is the tough step. The next step is finding whether it's Olofsson or
Right.
whoever it is. Every couple of years, you're just going to have to find those guys
Or-
because that's the way that it's done nowadays by these top teams.
Or it's Pat Maroon signing a 1-year deal for $1 million.
Or it's
for
Pat
St.
Maroon.
Louis.
Yeah,
$1 million
Or,
bucks,
Like
right?
you got young guys like Thomas on young deals, and
Yep.
that's how it's done by the top teams.
Can we talk about other players making $9 million?
Yeah.
Ryan Getzlaff.
Oof.
Yep. Oof.
And he got $9 million. How long ago?
8
Not
years,
long enough.
$66 million.
I mean, when did he sign that?
Don't ask.
It's not a piece of information.
It's not on the article I'm reading, Justin.
You're killing him.
Next player, Ryan Suter.
Oof.
I mean, he's a nice player.
He's not that good.
Zach Parise. What do you know? On the same team, 2
Yeah.
guys combining for $18
The
million.
hometown discount double deal that got Minnesota nowhere.
Evander Kane.
Oof.
Brent Seabrook.
Oof. That was good when he signed it. Well, it wasn't good when he signed it.
Let's see what Jeff says about this one. Claude Giroux. He's good.
Claudio's got 100 points
I
a
agree.
year. It's still a good deal.
100%. Here you go. Corey Perry.
They're literally trying to get rid of him right
Yeah,
now. So take that for what it's
So
worth.
let's just say, like, Jack and Skinner together make $19 million. We're talking about now Anaheim having $18
yeah,
million
Anaheim has
wrapped up.
Perry and gets left. Minnesota has
Anaheim needs
Suter
to get
and
rid of
Parise.
Perry.
Here's another nice player, Leon
And
Draisaitl.
don't bring Perry here, please.
Leon Draisaitl. It's a nice player.
he's pretty good.
He's
He's
worth
worth it.
Jakob Voracek, $9.25 million.
Yeah, I
Making more.
love Jake. That's a lot of money for him.
Stamkos, 9.5.
That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely every time.
Malkin, 9.5.
Yeah.
Crosby's only making 8.7. Brent Burns, 10.
I'm sure.
He's a point a game
That's a
player as a
good
defenseman.
question.
He's so good.
But he's not great at defense.
Doesn't matter. He's a point a game guy as a
Yeah, I
defenseman.
know.
It's so hard to find.
10 mil.
Sid is making 10.
He is now.
12 years, 104.4 million. So that PK Subban, 10. Sorry that I'm taking all this time, but this is fun.
this is an important discussion.
Evgeny Kuznetsov, 10.
He's good.
Sorry. Jack Eichel, 10.
He's
what a
good.
bum.
He's all right. Yeah.
Ovechkin, 10.
Yeah. Every time.
He's a good player, but John Carlson, 12.
That's absolutely
absurdity.
nuts. Yeah.
I mean, that's 22 million between Carlson and Ovechkin alone. And
I mean, and
Kuznetsov was on this list
too, yeah.
And Washington is pretty good, aren't
And they won the cup last year with
Yeah.
all those guys on the payroll.
Funny how that works. Here's a bad contract. It wasn't always. It's bad now. Anshe Kopitar, 12.
Yeah, it's really bad today, but
they won,
it
what,
was
3 cups?
very good for a long time.
Here's another example. Taves, 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, good contract.
Kane, 12. 2 players, 24 million. So
And Seabrook's on that list too.
Anybody that is pissed about 19 million between Jack and
Yeah.
Skinner, go take a lap.
And
because-
when these contracts that you were talking about were signed, all of them, it was a bigger percentage of the cap.
Yep,
much
here you go.
bigger.
Number 4, fourth highest contract in the NHL. Can we guess at these now?
I mean,
Fourth highest paid player at $13 million. A winger, left wing.
Kucherov.
No,
no, he doesn't make that much.
he
yet.
makes like nothing still. This will give it away. Dallas Stars.
Oh, is Jamie Benn? making
Jamie
that much?
Benn, 13 million.
Really?
Is Sagan also on this list?
I don't know.
Okay.
Tied for number 2 at 15 million a year.
Whoa.
Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tied with who else? Who is tied?
Is
with
this
Connor?
somebody that we're going to facepalm after we've...
No,
Somebody's
I don't
behind
think
us,
so.
Connor McDavid.
I don't think so. As soon as I give you the position, you'll get it.
Oh, it's Carey Price.
Yes, very good. I didn't even need to.
Okay, yeah, he basically carries Montreal.
And the highest paid player in the NHL currently? Who just signed the ticket, man? Come on. Who just signed the big ticket?
Mark Stone.
Nope.
No, he doesn't make that much yet. He makes a lot
Come
of money
on.
though.
The biggest free agent last year.
Tavares?
Oh, John
$15.9
Tavares, yeah.
million. $16 million.
Yeah.
Is that base salary or just like total cap?
7 years, $77 million. So that's technically
11 million a year plus a
year.
signing bonus.
Yeah. So the way that it works right now, it's 15.9.
I think it's a front-loaded $11 million a year deal.
Most of them are front loaded, so you can get out of them later.
Yeah.
But so Skinner is not making more than any of those guys. You said oof to like the first 6.
A lot of those are real bad.
Yeah. So anybody that's upset about the number,
I mean, so again, if you listen to this full list, so you've got Chicago, who's got Kane, Taves, Seabrook, and I think Duncan Keith still makes a pretty good chunk of change. And they won a bunch of cups. You've got Getzlaff and Perry for Anaheim, and they had a few good runs.
Gino and Sid.
You had Gino and Crosby, and Letang was making good money, and Fleury was making good money, and they made a bunch of runs. You can win Stanley Cups in the Capitals just last year because Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Karlsson.
I don't even think you can win Stanley Cups. It might be the recipe. It might be the recipe.
The way the teams are doing it nowadays is they are building with top guys who lock in for a long time, and then they find those second and third tier players to plug into the roster and complete the team vision. So the Sabres have done most of step 1, which is find the cornerstones, lock them up forever.
Eichel and Skinner.
And Dahlin
for the next 11 years at least.
Now you need to find the next pieces.
The most important part of the Skinner contract is you have to take advantage of Dahlin on an ELC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you want to be a contender next year. That's his last year for ELC, and you have to pay him some money after that. He's going to get some cheddar. But I'm already not mad when they're going to pay him. I'm already not mad.
Wait, who's next year's list?
Dahlin and Casey.
Wait, how is
But at this rate, Middlestat's going to
Dahlin
make...
was just a rookie this year.
Isn't it only 3 years?
3 ELC.
ELC's 3 years.
So last year, this year, and next year.
Yep.
So after next year.
Yeah.
They'll probably extend him.
So they're going to want to be...
After this year, they'll probably
when I say
extend
next
him.
year, I mean like the season after this. My bad.
Summer 2021.
That's what I meant. The next season, they want to grow, but the following season is when they really want to try to be a contender, just because Dahlin's ELC.
But you also know at that point, there's probably no bringing back Pominville at all. So whatever his contract is, no matter what it is, it's going to fall off.
They've spoken. That the rumors they've spoken. Botterill said it. I mean, that's not a rumor. They've kicked the tires, so to say, on Palmer. And if you bring up Palmer, I think it's a 4th line checking role at about 1.5 or 2.
I want him.
I'd like him back.
I honestly don't mind Death Roll Palmer.
Huh?
I don't mind Death Roll Palmer.
If
I don't mind
At
him on the top
37,
line.
38 years old.
If they're going to keep
him on the top line.
he was producing.
Yes.
They took him off and he stopped producing.
Yeah.
I don't know why Phil Hodge took him off that fucking line.
I mean,
him
Phil did a
play.
lot of things that are head scratchers.
Let's have Skinner, Jack, and Palmer.
That's when they were buzzing.
Like Olafson, whomever, and like Sam is line 2, and now you've got a top 6, man.
Mm-hmm.
Whomever is kind of
put them all
important.
together, and baby, you got a stew
Whomever-
going.
Whomever is kind of important as a second line center.
Whoever else you find in free agency to get.
You look
more
at this
than $1 million
roster-
above the cap floor.
You look at the roster the way it is and what they have currently, and I think so much of this upcoming season really relies so much on the shoulders of Casey Middlestat and like how well he grows.
Well,
and
so that goes
even
back to
Alex
what I'm
Nylander.
Obviously, you want Casey to start blossoming into what you think he is.
You can see it. He has flashes. You're like, fuck, he's gonna be good.
But I don't think you should position the team that if Casey doesn't have a good year, it falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
You just got to find a lot of depth. And part of it's going to be Nylander and Olafson and whoever else they bring up from Rochester. But they need to find a couple of good free agents or available trade pieces. Jason Zucker, who knows who else is available. Bring those guys in and flesh out the bottom 9 or bottom 6 of your roster.
How badly does Minnesota want to get rid of Jason Zucker? Because apparently that was the deal in place for Phil Kessel, and he kiboshed it. Like Zucker was going to Pittsburgh.
Give me Phil Kessel. Fuck.
Too expensive. Too expensive, but I like
Oh,
him.
come on. We just talked about players being too expensive. He's almost out of his contract, right?
I guess I don't know. I wonder how much time Phil Kessel has left in that contract because
I'm sure
if he's done after next year,
I'll look
actually
it up.
wouldn't
You have
matter
the Sabres
at
up.
all.
I'll look up Phil Kessel.
I'm sure at this point you can get the Penguins to take some of it. It sounds like they really want to get rid of him. For
I mean,
whatever reason.
they love Jason Botterill down there. Give him a little bit of a deal.
But Zucker's a nice player for $5
He's a
a
nice
year,
player.
and he could be that second.
Hey, Phil, why don't you go play with Jack Eichel and Jeff Skinner and Rasmus Dahlin? Maybe.
That line sounds disgusting. I mean, Phil isn't quite Phil
But
from
to be
5
clear,
years
Phil
ago,
plays
but-
third line for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh
Power
is
play 1
stacked
at the
to
point.
Shit.
Power play 1 at the point, but he plays third line.
You see Eichel just feeding Phil Kessel.
So your number one power play in that scenario is Dahlin, Kessel, Jack, Sam, and Skinner.
You know the most important part about next year is
Or
actually
Olsen.
you're likely going to have Victor Olofsson on this team, and him and Jack Eichel are opposite hands, You're gonna have both those shots on opposite corners of that power play.
Go 5 offense.
And you saw something last year. They were feeding him, and he's ripping it. He had chance. You could have 4 or 5 goals at the end of the year.
Are you talking about five offense?
He hit some posts, huh?
You talking about 5 offense?
Could be.
5. So
Talk about
Phil Kessel makes $6.8 million through 2021.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the time that Rasmus comes up for his ELC.
I'll set up for that. The question is he wants to come here.
He didn't want to go to Minnesota.
He knows Botterill.
I think he only wants to go for like contenders, though. Which at this point, I don't think Buffalo.
He's won
can
a
pitch
couple
to
cups.
him.
Right? He's won at least one, right?
He's won at least one.
Yeah, I think 1. Yeah, because didn't he have like a game-winning goal for the cup? I don't know.
He was definitely in Pittsburgh in time to win a cup.
Jason, please call Amanda Kessel's brother.
We can have the second best Kessel to ever play in Harbor Center.
What do you have to give up for him? What goes back to Pittsburgh?
Jake McCabe.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Kyle Opozo?
Yeah.
Would you like
Could be fucking
Phil
dream.
Kessel, but he's slower and scores less?
Can I say that maybe he'll have a rejuvenation under Ralph Kruger?
I don't believe it anymore.
No,
I don't
because
think so, no.
I don't know. Like
The thing is, he still plays hard.
he does.
Yeah, he skates his ass off. He's just not
He
good.
probably puts in. He's probably the most. I think one of the hardest players on the team. He's definitely just lost something.
And I don't knock him for it. Like, it's entirely out of his control. It's a shitty situation he's in. But man, like it's frustrating watching him play sometimes because he clearly puts his head down and skates hard for every puck. But he's playing with guys who want to play at a speed that he can't reach.
At this point, I think he's like a power play 2 staple.
Yeah, I
Put
mean,
him on that.
he's good in front of the net, making things happen.
Feed him a slapper. That's baby. I don't know.
But I don't ever want to see him and Jack Eichel on a line together again as long as I live.
That should never happen again.
And never, and even after that, even when I'm dead, I don't want to see it. It's never again.
But yeah, it's so much of like next year is going to just rely on the progression of Middlestat and Nylander. It's time for Nylander to slide in and produce.
Who else? Because that's 100% true. But what about what about Will Borgen? What about Lawrence Pilot?
Pilot 100%. Pilot's got to be here.
Pilot
next
will be
year.
up here.
Okay.
I think so much of it depends on the camp. Like if Borgen has a good camp. Borgen played well when he was up here.
Yeah, Borgen
He made
had
a good first
camp
pass.
this
Yeah.
year.
I have a hard time believing there's 6 guys better than Will Borgen are going to play defense here next year unless we sign some big free agent.
Scandella's going to fight not be a 7th. I really believe that. He could be a.
That's a guy that I think Kruger might be able to fix, is Marco Scandella.
I don't think the system fit him.
Yeah.
I don't think he does either.
Because 2 years ago he was good. And
He was
good in
fine.
He was great in
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
He was fine the first year here. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't great, but he was
There were
good.
times he was the bright spot out the back door for them.
I think this year that Phil Halsey tried to put in more of a system, and it was not what he does. I don't know. I also don't think there was much of a defensive system in place.
Ask Carter Hutton.
They stunk defensively. I didn't really see any real strategy on it. Like
There were a lot of times it looked like they were just the 5-year-olds you see at their local rink just chasing the puck around.
yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, he's got 5. It's like the youth soccer game. It's 2 goalies and 10 on each side just chasing the ball in a circle.
So your big pay. I'm looking up. Justin has cap friendly up. So you have Jack making 10, Jeff making 9, and then Kyle making 6, which continues to make me really happy about the team friendly deals that Reinhart and Risto are on. A lot of people ask what the next step is for the Sabres. I think we said in the Slack chat, extending Reinhart has to be near the top of that list. I think Sam is a really nice player.
And then you have the ELC for Casey comes up after next year.
But at this rate, Casey is not set to get a payday.
He'll get a nice
Not
bridge.
right now, but
Sure, he'll get a
nice
bridge deal. But
bridge,
yeah.
what's the nice bridge deal? 4? Like
4. I'll take 4 for
sure,
sure.
right. But at this point, he's
I have
not,
a hard
he's
time
not
believing he's
earning.
you give Sam 3.25, 3.6 or whatever, and Casey, I don't think Casey can't make much more.
Well, I
than
think
that.
Sam's going to make
No, I'm
5 or
saying-
6
No,
his next
but I'm
deal.
saying Sam proved something to me before his
Yeah.
bridge deal.
Sure.
And Casey has done to present, subject to change,
Sure.
very little.
Yep.
What do you think Reinhardt gets? His extension 7.5.
7.5, yeah.
I think
if he
he's
has
gonna-
another season like he did last year.
I was just going to say,
I think
if
you sign him, sign him now.
Sure, if you can.
Oh, yeah.
If you can come to a deal. But his agent might be smarter
I mean,
than
if
that.
I'm Sam, I'm like,
What does
I'm
Sam?
waiting.
But what
Yep.
does Sam want though? Does he want to stay here long term with?
And Sam's still
It's up to
RFA,
Botterill to
though.
figure that
so
out.
he's still a restricted free agent. So the UFA, that market isn't at the end. So
I think-
that does give the Sabres leverage.
I think this year might be a big year for RFAs.
Mm-hmm.
think a lot's going to happen in that market.
I feel like we say that
Someone
all the
just
time.
fucking offer sheet anyone.
I think Mitch Marner's going to get a big offer sheet.
not gonna
The
happen.
Islanders.
People are so gun shy.
The Islanders have so much money.
I don't know.
I would love the Islanders spitefully
Didn't the
offer sheeting
Flyers
Mitch
post an
Marner.
article about like
Why wouldn't they after JT signed there, right? It would be the
Yeah.
perfect
Be
I think that's what you were
beautiful.
saying.
Yeah,
It'd be the
absolutely.
perfect revenge narrative.
Philly's the last team. No, they're not the last team. They're one of the most recent teams to go for an offer sheet when they tried to give Shea Weber so much money that it would have fucked the team forever.
yeah.
That would have been bad. They
would-
should
how
count.
bad-
They should count their blessings that Nashville said no.
How bad would they look for that contract right now?
Oh my god, that would have ruined the team.
We want the sub stuff for 2 seasons. That's it.
But I mean, someone's just got to do it first. Once people start doing it, the new GMs, the Kyle Dubases of the world, someone could just start doing it and accepting it as part of the team building thing. Then people will just do it.
We've just talked about it all the time in the NFL. We hate the Patriots. We don't hate them anymore because they offer sheeted Chris Hogan and Mike Gillislee. It was like, you guys can have them. That's okay. We're not going to pay them that much money.
I think Mitch Marner's agent's guy would tell him, "You're going to get paid if you do."
I mean,
this."
supposedly Marner's taking free agent visits to teams while in RFA.
That's what I've heard. It was publicly said, right?
Yeah.
Like,
If nothing else,
He's trying to
it's
talk a
genius
team into
marketing.
doing it. He's trying to talk a team into doing it.
Or just going to go back to Toronto and say, hey, this team's willing to pay me this much, so ball's in your court now.
I mean, if I'm Mitch Marner, I have no faith that Toronto is going to be good. This should have been their year. And they
Defensively,
were not able to do anything.
And now you have Zaitsev saying he wants out
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
No one should let them out of that contract. Zaitsev is a pylon.
no one should
They
have him out
can
of the
pay him.
Marlowe contract either. Let him keep on to that.
Yeah. At least I think Marlowe could go to a team and do something. Zaitsev is a liability. Most of their defense is a liability.
Yeah.
It
Almost
drops.
the entirety
You
of
have
it.
Morgan Riley, and from there it's like a big drop off for
Yeah,
Toronto.
it's Muzzin who they're overpaying a good
That's
bit.
right. Muzzin came over.
Morgan
He's
Riley's
all
not even a great defenseman.
No,
He's
good
good
with the puck, though.
offensively.
He's a great
Yeah.
puck mover,
He's
yeah. I'm not worried. Like, stoked for October. So let's just clear that up right now. They haven't even had the draft yet. They haven't even had free agency yet. And I am so ready for October, if nothing else, because Ralph Kruger brings hope eternal. Brian Duff gets on here and stokes us, pumps us up about how good Ralph's going to be. And Ryan Whitney's out here talking about how we should be happy because so I'm ready anyway. But you already know that another deal, look at the deals that he made last year. The Sheary deal and the Skinner deal had us absolutely stoked. And I think Bottrell gets that. Like, if nothing else, there's a value to selling tickets when you go out and make splashes. The guy traded Cliff Poo in his second-round pick for a 40-goal scorer. So
Imagine being Carolina and not having Jeff Skinner when you're trying to win that series.
imagine being Carolina and trading him and still going to the third round of the playoffs.
Imagine being the
That makes
Sabres
it worse, I
and
think.
trading Ryan O'Reilly.
Well, you can't win them all.
I guess it kind of evened out a bit. I guess you can look at it that way, but
sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains. Yeah, he's been something else. I know he missed that shorthanded chance last night, but there was a play last night in Game 6 where he, on a shorty, 6 seconds in, splits both defenders bad, burns them all the way, had Rask beat clean, and then just lost the puck on a backhand. Scores another goal later. He is one of only really 2 considerations for Conn Smythe at this point, depending on how Game 7 goes. It's going to be him or Tuukka Rask, barring something insane happening in Game 7. He has been a game changer for St. Louis, and I think we always knew he was capable of this, and it's frustrating to see it come to fruition somewhere else. But what can you do? I mean, he clearly didn't want to be here, or was very frustrated. The team didn't have any interest in either reconciling that or anything like that. Now he's going to go and play a Game 7 to try to dethrone Boston. And I, for one, am all for it. I hope he wins the Stanley Cup because I would rather he do it than Boston do it.
Or maybe he was just frustrated that the team was struggling and everyone blew that out of proportion. But I don't know. I'd like to think that
The
there's
Buffalo sports media has never once, for any reason, blown anything out of proportion. I don't know what you're talking about, Steve. We are
Never.
very well rationed, even keeled individuals.
How many of those Masagaves have you had? 10%?
I'm halfway through this one. Making my way.
great news. Next year, Zach Bogosian comes off the cap. Okay. Pay your player that will play on the ice.
He played, probably 65 games last year, and he
better
was
this
pretty
year,
good.
yeah.
He had a couple nice goals. I don't dislike Bogosian. I dislike injured Bogosian, but when he's healthy, I like him.
I really want to like Bogosian.
I do like him a
And
lot.
there's times where he's very good. It's frustrating because he's inconsistent and he's hurt a lot. I think if he was ever actually healthy, if you could get him back for a little bit less than he's making now, I don't hate it.
When he's healthy, he's quite good. And you nailed the number in the
65
head. He
games?
played
Jesus,
65
Steve.
games, Steve.
Did I?
Get
Damn.
out of the stat sheet, you nerd. Dweeb.
Nose deep in the analytics.
That's what I do. I spend my mornings drinking my coffee and reading Zach Bogosian stat lines.
Been waiting for that.
I forget we have
opportunity to
Brandon
pop up.
Montour. This thing was better that's going to look
So
with like
good.
Pilot on here. I actually like Case Nelson a lot.
I drew up with
Yeah,
just
you're
a. My buddy Adam asked me what my lineup would look like, and Brandon Montour was on my top pair with Darlene.
Yep.
They had too much offense
I mean,
in
that's
my
not-
Montour,
that's already
Darlene, then Risto and Nelson.
McCabe.
That's already
Risto
going to
and
be
McCabe.
that's already going to be a positive having Montour for the full season instead of just from the trade deadline.
And then Pilot and
Nelson.
Scandella. Whoever.
Let me see. I'll see who I put, but I don't think Scandella or Nelson were. It might have been Borgen, to be honest.
We should all do a show next week. We should do a show next week, but we all do a cap-friendly team,
I'm down.
and then we share them. We'll do a live show,
Yeah.
so we can, this is not a camera, but we'll share the screen. We'll go through them all.
I'm down, dude.
That sounds fun.
We have homework to do.
Do some math.
Do some homework,
Do
yeah.
some math.
Yeah, let's do some homework.
I was doing this
Let's
one.
do a little interaction here.
So here are my top six: Darlene, Montour, McCabe, Bristow, Pilot, Bogosian.
Not
Steve
a
already
bad
started this
top
homework.
six.
What's that?
Yeah, Steve already started this homework here.
Well, I told you.
So I feel like you could see one or two more moves out of Botterill. Because just be real. I see everyone doing these cap-friendly things and putting all these players in, plugging them in here and there. But you get like 4 or 5 new players. Like people got JT Miller and like 3 other decent guys. Like, like big moves like on this roster. That's not going to happen. Just be real. It's not going to happen. You can get maybe one or two of those guys. Like
also, you have to
realistically-
think, too, when you're signing these guys, it's going to be to multi-year deals, and you don't
Yeah.
want to lock all your money away.
Well, JT Miller would be a trade, right? That's the conversation of Risto to Tampa.
Yeah, because they don't have any
in
money down
exchange
there.
for Miller and like Palat or something coming back.
And realistically, you're looking at a trade for like maybe a Russell trade for someone considerable, like a top 6 guy, and then you're looking at a Connor Sheary type trade. Then you're looking at a bottom 4, couple free agents. That's it. Then you really, realistically, are relying on Olofsson and Nylander to really contribute to this team next year.
Mm-hmm.
And Tage Thompson.
Yep. Sure. Sign me
I'm
up.
a little worried about Thompson, but not
He's still
as
so
bad
young.
as
He's 20.
He
He's
played
20
well
years
in
but
the
not as
AHL.
bad as like. I'm not as worried as like the fact that there's a guy like but Okposo.
I think someone like Kruger is someone that could really work well with Thompson.
Hopefully.
Have Kruger's a guy's going to work with Thompson to improve his game
Right.
and play his game.
I think Thompson's going up towards his ceiling. Okposo is topped out and headed
I
down.
mean, Oposo's also, 31 years old? I mean,
Yeah.
No,
even
he's
if it
old.
wasn't for the injuries, he should be trending downwards, if not like plateauing already at this point. The injuries will only exacerbate that.
But I was saying, I don't think Halsey's kind of coach that's working with Thompson to improve his game to fit in the Halsey system. Halsey was coaching him to play the game Halsey wanted him to play. I think Kruger's a whole different kind of coach.
Mm-hmm.
He will put the proper pegs in the right hole.
He's an
And part of that,
expert pegger.
part of that,
Ralph
like-
Kruger.
Great pegger.
Part of that, like we talked about, I think is, I would give Babcock a lot of credit, and it seems like all is not right in paradise, but I would always tell people when Babcock rolls out Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander, how much coaching is he doing?
Oh, for
He's
sure.
probably like, go get them, boys.
Almost
That's the
zero.
end of his coaching. Like,
For sure.
go have fun. Like, you watch the way they played and how wide open it was. There's not coaching there. It's guys, you know what to do. Go do it. Like, sure, there's a system, but like,
Yeah.
let them spread their wings. And maybe that's not what Housley gave them. I don't know.
Not even spread their wings. Just, I guess, not even, just coach the guy the right way. I don't think I think the coaching really lacked last year, tactically and educationally. I think they learned a lot. I don't know.
what was it that Hamilton said last year? They play low IQ hockey.
Housley called him soft, and they didn't care. Like, he had no response from his team after he called him soft.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Not like Housley was the epitome of physical play when he was playing in the
Oh,
NHL.
shit. He did play in the toughest time in hockey, though. I mean,
And then you have Rod Brendamore, who we were mocking for having training camp of team grit versus team hustle or whatever the hell it was.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of mocking him about like, and guess what that team did for him every night? They went out and fucking,
the grit and hustle and compete is it's so not good. It's such cliche. It's
Sure.
so overused, but it's also such an important part of the
yeah,
game.
you get out there and go out and give a shift where you actually do hustle and show some grit. You're probably going to get a positive result. So
I'll take a team full of players that work as hard as Evan Rodriguez all day.
I love you, Rod. I do.
Yeah.
we mentioned there's a couple guys on the team. You know, Oposo has always got his head down. Erod Sherry never takes a shift off. Sherry's feet never take a shift off.
Maybe Sherry's feet are too fast for his upper body.
His stick fails him sometimes when he gets a good look, but his feet, you watch him from the beginning to the end of that 40-second shift. It's like the Tasmanian devil out there.
I feel like
he's-
Connor Sherry is permanently falling backwards because his feet are too fast.
They got to rework that bottom six. Like that bottom six is just so like for a minute.
Larson.
I mean, you just need a couple of guys at least to step up and become the cornerstones of your bottom six. And
Gergerson has to go. I like Larson as a fourth line center.
I'd rather Larson than
Let's
Gerson
have
play a
Asplund replace
long
both of
start.
them.
Huh?
Let's have Asplund replace both of them.
I'll take that too.
The dudes, I think I told you guys, I went to Rochester twice last year, and there were probably throughout the two games a half a dozen times where you're like, who is that guy? Because I mean wheels, like gone. A puck from their own end and it's going to be an icing. He probably beat out 3 icings in the 2 games. And I'm like, who is this guy out there? Asplund, fastest guy on the ice. Now, obviously, the NHL's a different speed, but on the AHL ice, Rasmus Asplund was the fastest player on the ice for either team by a lot. And I'm excited for that. CJ Smith's fast too, but you don't like him, so.
You don't like Larson?
He's a fine bottom six winger. I think that's his ceiling right now, though.
Smith?
CJ, yeah.
I don't like Larson because, other than a PK, he's a good penalty killer. Other than that, he doesn't impress me, and I feel like there's guys out there who can.
You know what the worst part is? Like that year, O'Reilly got hurt, and he had to step up, and he played that first game against Pittsburgh. But that stretch of games, he was playing so well, and then he got scumbagged into the corner, and then that hasn't been the same. I don't think it's why, but I think he's playing in the role he needs to be in. Like he's not a top 2 guy. He's not. He was forcing the weird roles with the way the team was.
And I think that's what a lot of people look at when they say they don't like Larson. I think that's what a lot of people look at is his play in roles he's not supposed
When
to
he's
be in.
I
playing,
just watch him serving up turnovers in his own end sometimes. It just drives me absolutely mad.
but look at the whole
know.
state of the defensive.
I know.
play. We'll see.
You know what? This is going to be an unpopular take because I saw you looking up his buyout numbers, but someone like Vlad Sobotka played a role in St. Louis, not necessarily a top 6 role, but he played a role and he had a role and he would score. Like he certainly wasn't getting driven out of St. Louis the way that people in Buffalo are treating him. And I'm wondering if Kruger can change that for him, because you saw his interview with the Buffalo News and he was like, well, if I'm being asked to take a draw in the defensive zone, I'll do it. But because that was never his role. Like he was never relegated to be the defensive zone draw guy. And that was it. He played power play 2 in St. Louis. And
When
I'm not saying,
did he put up offensive numbers ever in his career?
I know, but just he's clearly frustrated with the way he was utilized. And if you want to demoralize any workplace in the world, misutilize people. Like make people who are not good at this do that. And you're going to lose them. Maybe Sobotka wasn't as good at playing a second power play as Middlestat was, but he certainly felt misused by the coaching staff. And he was very clear about that. Like he didn't roast Phil Housley, but his words were very much like,
I think Sabaka was the only thing close Housley had to that. What he needed was that third line defensive checker center. I think it's the only thing close. Yeah, I think Sabaka was stuck there because that's all no one else could do. No one else was like in that position. That kind of player. I mean,
He just gave him too many defensive zone draws when he wasn't winning faceoffs.
but there was that time Housley used him in the overtime.
Yeah.
A couple times, and Twitter freaked out, and they were right to freak out.
because he was on the ice before Jeff Skinner. He played an overtime shift before Jeff Skinner did, and that to me was. And they asked him after the
Never
game. They're
happened.
like, why didn't Skinner get a shift until the 5th? And Housley gave his. Well, these guys were working well together, and I really like the matchup. Dude, Jeff Skinner scored 40 goals for you this year. Put him out on the ice. He might bang one in. Especially because during the 10-game win streak, all he did was bang home overtime winners. So I don't
Doug
know.
Marone, it was his turn in the rotation.
Chan Gailey. It was Fred's turn.
I was thinking about the Marcel Darius thing.
Oh, okay. Because Chan Gailey's famous line was, "It was Fred's turn," when they asked why Spiller was on the bench.
It should have always been Fred's turn. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Out there in that form.
So what is
in East Aurora?
So we've been bullshitting randomly here, but what is the next move in your opinion, Jeff? You're Jason Botterill. What's your now that Skinner's locked up? What's next move?
I reach out to Sam Reinhart and his agent and see what their number is, and try to get them to sign now before Sam has another great season like he did last year and knocks that number up significantly. And then for me, I mean, I don't think I have any other focus until the draft and free agency. Once the draft and free agency kind of settle in, obviously you get feelers out for who you want to make moves for in free agency. Maybe you start wondering what you're going to do with Palmer and with some of the RFAs who are up right now, McCabe. But I think you can kind of slow play it now. There was one thing on a time crunch for him, and that was Skinner. He's done that. Now we can start crafting his offseason plan.
And the whole offseason kind of hinged on Skinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Skinner doesn't sign. It's
a whole different thing.
You're scrambling.
It's damage control. Yep.
Plan B.
Throwing $8 million at Ryan DeZingle.
You're coming up with plan B through plan Z. And if you don't sign Skinner.
Mike, what's your next move?
Look at options for a second center to see if there's any options out there that you want to bridge the gap between now and when you think Middlestad's ready, or if you look at that and say, okay, we're going to try to develop Middlestad there. I think you've got time for Reinhart. Like, try to negotiate with him early in the season at worst. But I think you just need to start filling in roster spaces, and that secondary scoring in that second line center is probably your next important piece that you need to look at and decide, okay, what am I doing here?
Steve?
If I am Jason Botterill, I'm looking to package the second first-round pick. So the Blues pick, not trading 7, keeping 7. There's too many good players at the top. Mm-hmm. So trading that second first-round pick and a prospect for Kyle Turris.
Kyle Turris.
That's your second center, I think. $6 million a year.
How long?
So that a bad deal?
Had a down year last year, but he's got
For how long?
5 years left, but $6 million a year. What's that?
Isn't Turris in Ottawa?
No, he was in Ottawa.
Was in Ottawa.
Got traded for in the Fisher trade, I believe.
To Nashville.
Trade C.J. Smith. I mean,
But only C.J. Smith.
it's gotta be a mid-level prospect. I don't like that.
That's fine, but your value is going to be the first round pick, which GMs way overvalue.
Mm-hmm.
But Nashville's kind of in cap trouble, are they not? They're kind of stuck, if I remember right. So they're looking to move on, and I think he fills that number 2 center role, and you can get him fairly cheap. You might have to give up a A- prospect for him, but
On the other hand, you could trade for Mike Fisher, and now Carrie Underwood has to sing the anthem at all the Sabres games.
that's true. But he retired. But that's true. Could happen.
Hey, details.
Just trade for the rights to Carrie Underwood.
We're not talking about what you want to do. Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
I'm a married man.
She's a married
The
woman.
door's open, Steve.
Hmm.
We're in Justin's house.
Mm-hmm.
The door's open. Let's close the door. We'll ask him again.
No. He said it, not me.
I do think the Sabres need. I think one of the biggest press needs is probably is that bridge, a second line center. Is it Kyle Turris? I don't know if it's Kyle Turris, but I don't know. I think the next move here is locking up Sam Reinhart, and you're not gonna if they're gonna acquire a second line center, it's got to be through trade. I don't think you're gonna see a big splash free agency. You can see a couple mid-level signings maybe. I want to lock up Reinhart for 6-7 years. I want to keep him here for the duration of Eichel's stay. And then I want to shore up that bottom 6. I think it's really important in this team because we're showing Jeff on the phone.
Something that you won't care about, but Kevin
We'll
Durant.
talk about it after the Toland interview.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna end there in Sabres.
I mean, I think it's a natural conclusion.
I'm excited.
For me, that player is Jason Zucker. By the way, I think if he's trade bait, I'd rather have Zucker than
Sure, you
Turris.
can
at the
swap
price
Turris for
similar.
Zucker. That's fine by me.
Do you think Ritzo's traded this offseason?
I hope not, but
Nope.
I think they might.
I don't think he is.
I think every team, when you try to get a trade with them, that's going to be the name they ask about.
I think the Sabres need scoring, and They have, I think,
I'm not necessarily opposed to them trading him. I just think that his value is lower than his value to other teams is lower than his value to ownership.
I go on record saying I am opposed to them trading Rasmus Ristolainen.
I'm not opposed to them trading anyone at the value side.
Nope. I don't want them to.
There's a price for everyone.
Well, sure, if they're gonna,
price.
of course,
almost everybody has.
I've got a bold prediction for next season.
Almost.
Yeah,
Victor Olofsson scores 30 goals.
I dig it. He's got a good shooter's touch.
He's gonna rip it. And that's the one thing I was like. The one thing I was kind of looking forward to, if they did lose Skinner, I was kind of looking forward to Olofsson Eichel together.
I mean, the goodness is now you can look forward to both combinations.
Yes, and they would still be together on a power play.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
Because they do have that triangle, that Eichel, Dahlin on top, Olofsson on the bottom,
and then Sam in front of the
Sam out
net.
there dishing pucks. I was just gonna say Sam,
for a smaller guy, Sam is so good in front of the net.
he's one of the only guys not afraid to go there.
Yeah, he's really it's funny because he's not a huge guy, and not a huge but in front of the net on the power play, he takes him. It's a Thomas Vanek kind of style, but not Vanek's build.
Nope.
It's weird.
He's a little quicker, a little shiftier, lower to the ground. Maybe not quicker. Vanek was pretty quick back in the day, but
And I cannot overstate this. I saw it last year at the they had the scrimmage at the Harbor Center where Dahlin was there and everyone was freaking out. The second I saw it, just shoot the puck, I was like, that is an elite shot. I've never seen someone shoot a puck like that.
before the One Buttes game last year, they had the Sabres warning up on Harbor Center ice. It was weird to walk in there and see them doing so, and it's noticeable when someone has something special like that. I think I've said this on the podcast before. When I worked for the Sabres back in college, you got used to seeing hockey players skate around everywhere. And I remember laying eyes on Alex Ovechkin skating, and your just jaw hits the floor. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen thousands of people do this, and this guy does it better than all of them. And that's how I feel about guys like Dahlin who can shoot the puck like that. It's nuts.
Dahlin or Olofsson? He said Dahlin.
I haven't seen Olofsson as much.
Oh.
Dahlin, yeah.
So good.
All right. Let's talk about FC Buffalo a little bit.
Yeah, joined by FC Buffalo forward Kieran Toland, talking about their 2-0 home victory over the rival-hated Erie Commodores FC, and looking forward to this Friday's contest against Pittsburgh Hotspurs. Welcome back to the 716 Sports Podcast here on the heels of a big FC Buffalo victory this past Friday over Erie 2-0. We are joined by FC Buffalo's Kieran Toland here on the line. Kieran, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us.
Yeah, no problem.
So starting right there with that Friday game, you guys come out early, you come out often, 2-0 victory. What was your game plan going into that game? It seemed like you guys had an emphasis on just not letting them get comfortable and just using your speed against them. Was that what you guys intended to do out of the gate?
Yeah, no, definitely. The first 10 minutes, we kind of just said we don't stop. We just keep hunting the ball, keep going after it, and yeah, that's what we pretty much did. And it actually almost continued for the whole game. And I think the energy that we were bringing out throughout the pitch, it just helped with how unsettled they were throughout the whole game.
It feels like the last two games you guys have really been able to control the midfield and win 50-50 balls. And I actually was thrown off last game because I wasn't sure what the shape was, because I saw Colin O'Keefe almost playing a right back. But Coach Butcher told us last week that you guys are in a 3-5-2. And how does that work for you as a forward because of how crowded the midfield is? But also talk to me about how much success you guys have found recently in that 3-5-2 shape.
Yeah, I mean, the problem this week was that with Colin there, Erie were just attacking us the whole left side. So their fullbacks and their wingbacks, everything was going down that left side. So it was almost as if we had to play Colin as a right back. But he did well getting up and down the pitch. He's just such an athlete, and he loves running, so that always works for us.
Loves running. Two words that never come out of my mouth. Loves running.
Yeah, no, he's quite the athlete, and he can go for days, so that's always good. And yeah, I mean, when he does that, and then there's a lot of times where we kind of look for me and Nevado up front, and the balls come up, and then okay, it's fine that their centre backs won a lot of the ball. But then those second balls, that's where midfield come in and they're just right on top and they press and we go and win those second balls, and then that kind of gears us to go to goal once they win it.
What has it been like for you getting back here to FC Buffalo, getting reaccustomed to the team, and also getting accustomed to playing forward? How has that transition been for you?
I mean, it's been not too bad. When I went home, I was looking for teams, and then ended up getting with a team. It was probably February, and I went in and played the 10 position. And when I was there, we worked a lot on the connection between the 10 and the striker. So it was almost as if I was kind of already playing second striker. Yeah, I mean, it's a little different. But then again, I'm 23 years old. I know pretty much most of the possessions. You learn them as you get older. And at this age, you should be able just to fill in any possession, really.
So what you're saying is you're ready to play keeper this weekend because you're the veteran 23-year-old.
I mean, if they need me there, then they need me there, you know?
Well, I mean, given how many shots you guys let even get to Tremudo over the weekend, I think you might be okay in there. Just got to stop one and you're good.
Yeah. Hey, can you talk to us about the penalty? First off, I kind of want to highlight Novato because as hard as he's worked, he really hasn't been able to find the score sheet, but damn, he's been playing hard. He's been on the end of a lot of long balls, and he earns that penalty. I said to Jeff right away on the broadcast, I have a feeling Kieran's going to take this, and you managed to slot it, and Christopher Ralph comes in, and he was pissed after you beat him because he guessed right. He had a feeling you were going low right, and you slotted it there anyway. So walk us through the penalty as well as Novato's work to earn it.
I just kind of have the same routine for penalties, free kicks, corners. I know coach that I used to have. He said to always try and keep the same routine, and I just kind of follow that routine. And when I put the ball down and take the steps back, that there and then is kind of when I decide. And once I say one side, I don't change my mind in my head, and I just go with it. And if it goes in the net, then that's great. If it doesn't, then you just got to get on with it, kind of thing. But for Nevado, he works hard. Like, I can't credit him enough. He probably works way harder than most of the guys on the team, you know, like all the running he does, all the pressing, and he does well to get his body in front of other defenders and keep the ball most of the time. And like you guys said, without him, the penalty doesn't really happen. It was mostly just him going by the defenders, pressing them, and yeah, it was all down to him that won the PK in the end.
So you guys start the season with a tough 4-0 defeat on the road, but immediately come back, get a 5-0 and now a 2-0 victory at home. What is it going to be key for you guys to continue that momentum moving forward, both to Friday and then down the road, trying to turn the season into something special?
I mean, the Rochester game, there was still uncertainties within the team. We didn't have everyone that we needed to have. There wasn't a lot of guys that are playing now that weren't here for that game, so obviously that affects the team a little bit. But now it's just a case of like keeping the momentum going through training, because the last couple of weeks of training have been really good and the intensity is really high. Like the other week there, like we practiced so hard, people are flying the tackles, people are getting pissed off. Oh, sorry, I'm my language.
No, you're good. Believe me, you're more than good on this podcast.
People are getting annoyed, and then at the end of practice, everyone's shaking hands, all good practice. That's kind of what you want to see. You want to see that intensity, but then at the end of it, you want to just like still all be mates by the end of it, you know? So I think that's a big thing for us.
So FC Buffalo returns home this Friday night to All High Stadium, a 7 p.m. kickoff against the Pittsburgh Hotspurs. Kieran, Toland, and the boys back out there looking to make it 3 consecutive home victories. And Kieran, thank you so much for taking time here and spending it with us on the podcast tonight.
No problem, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
And thanks again to Kieran for taking time to talk to us here on the podcast. Again, you can find FC Buffalo back home at All High Stadium this Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff against the Pittsburgh Hotspurs. Myself and Steve down there on the other end of the couch will be back on the call there with you. Available live streaming on the internet. And they have like the coolest highlight interface I've ever seen a team use through My Cujo, it's called. But they're able to clip highlights and share them in real time, which is super cool for an online broadcast like that. So if you can't make it there, check out the broadcast or the highlights. They do a good job. Every individual shot and chance and foul is notated with timestamps. It's very useful for a broadcaster who likes to go back and check what I missed sometimes. It's very useful. So, guys, I got a question for you. So yesterday, before Game 6 of the Stanley Cup, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch published their Blues Win the Cup article. Well before Game 6 in St. Louis, that the Blues proceeded to get railroaded in by mostly Tuukka Rask and then eventually by the rest of the Bruins. Do you guys think that on some level, publishing that article accidentally has angered the sports gods or thrown off some sort of mojo in the St. Louis locker room, and they are now 100% going to lose the series in Boston?
Ouch, to have that article come out and then put up the performance they did? Oof.
I don't even know that they played that badly for like half a game.
First of all, it's a bad take. They played really well yesterday. I think the only difference in that series has been Binnington. He's not been good. He was good the previous game. But Tuukka Rask saved the Bruins' ass last night. He made some saves, some really, really great saves.
He almost literally pulled that one out of his ass.
Yeah. That one was incredible. That's just
to answer your question, I do believe in superstitions as a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it throws off a mojo in a locker room, as you're saying. I get what you're saying. I don't think this thing sets off the hockey gods, so to say. I don't.
As we were just talking before we came back on air, you've got like people in the sport who don't want to touch their conference championship trophy because they think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. You've got all sorts of crazy traditions. Players don't want to be who have to be the last one on the ice, so they have to do rock, paper, scissors with each other to be the last player on the ice, and all these goalie traditions and things that they do, ways they touch the net. There's so much in this sport. And it's not just hockey. It's all sports, too. Baseball's another one where that is rampant. You have baseball players who have very specific traditions, especially a lot of pitchers, and how they approach the mound, what they do, how they go through their motions, all those things like that.
Ryan Miller had a thing where he was always the last one off the ice. Mm-hmm. He was at like a spin first and then off the ice.
I always think of Vino when we think about this and how he approaches the goal, the way he does before he takes it at the beginning of every quarter, the way he winds up to the boards and then goes in there. I don't know. It's just interesting to think because like you never see that happen. I mean, especially in this day and age with big newspapers, especially like who's the intern who pressed that button 8 hours early and immediately got let go?
So I
Some
think
of that on purpose.
I think there is a massive difference between routine and superstition. I realize those things overlap for a lot of athletes. I don't believe in luck and superstition as a supernatural force. Like I don't think they exist. Like there's no hockey gods that have a bearing on this Stanley Cup. But
yes, there is.
I do. Like something like Vino, like that's the routine of doing the same thing all the time. So it feels normal, and then you have that. It's like Kieran told us in the interview, right? He does the same thing before every free kick and before every PK.
Right.
I don't know if he thinks that's lucky as much as he's trying to have everything be the same. You know, it's like your morning routine. If you wake up for work every day, you get in the rhythm. It makes things easier. I think there's a massive difference between the routine and the superstition. Someone's in big trouble for posting that because if they go on to lose, they will get blamed. I just don't think there's a supernatural force out there that this newspaper article jinxed them.
And even if let's just pretend there is, I think it would that whatever that supernatural force would be smart enough to realize this is not something initiated by the team, but instead is an outside force. Because I highly doubt that the team is reading the newspaper and thinking, "Yep, we got this, no problem, it's ours already," and didn't go out there thinking that it was just going to be handed to them. I don't think that's the St. Louis's mentality of that game. I think that any supernatural force would not punish the team for something that they themselves are not truly involved in.
I think to them it was probably something funny in the locker room. Like they probably mentioned it one time.
It probably was.
I mentioned one time and laughed about it. So I made a couple jokes and
Counterpoint: do you think it fired up the Bruins at all?
Probably.
That's
especially being in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's bulletin board material.
Oh yeah,
but it's also not provided bulletin board by the team.
You're locking. That's definitely a hockey guy thing. Like you get your hands on that, you screenshot it, you send it out to all the boys. You print it out, put it on a bulletin board. That's what the first thing you see walking in the locker room. That's definitely a hockey guy thing for sure. That's a good take. But I don't. I think there's a few passing comments that laughs about this thing in the locker room, but I don't think they lose because of it, because of any superstitions or supernatural forces. Someone fucked up royally.
Now if the Blues were going out and saying, "Yeah, we got this. There's no chance," going around strutting around like they've already won it, then there would be.
I think the Blues played really well yesterday. I think they played a really good game.
They played really good for about a period and a half.
Well, not even that. I think they played well throughout the entire game.
They need to score on the power play, Justin. They're like
They do.
1 for 19
Yeah,
in the
I think
series.
Tarasenko's been invisible.
It's also Tuukka standing at his head at points too. There was that one first period pad save he made on Braden Shen where he like stuck his leg against his body and took one away. They've come close left and right, and
I think Ryan O'Reilly had him top cheese in that breakaway.
he should have scored.
Puck just got away from him.
Puck
It
was,
rolled off his
rolling the
stick.
whole time, yeah.
You could tell he was trying to flick that thing up top shelf, and it was wide open. Rask wasn't there. That
Puck's
goal,
rolling on Rhino was the story of the game. He took that delay of game on a rolling puck he threw over the glass that gave him the 5-on-3 goal. That was huge too.
Yeah, the Rhino. If Riley scores that first goal and then breakaway, it changes the whole face of the game.
Oh yeah,
Can we talk again about Marchand with that fucking trip that he had on the
piece of shit.
like? I appreciated who was it Olczyk on the broadcast when he said hit him like.
Yeah,
Run him over
actually
there, and
hit
it's
him.
not a penalty. But because you stuck your knee out at the last second, and cannot stand that guy. Good.
It's just frustrating. Like he's so talented. Like he's objectively good. He scored that goal he scored was disgusting. Just
the
wired it.
One timer without even winding up.
Really hard
Like,
angle. Yeah.
The fact that he feels the need to play like that is so frustrating because he doesn't have to play like that. He's just a scumbag player sometimes. It's for a guy with that much talent to have the reputation he does is just disappointing.
I don't think the Blues are gonna win.
I don't think
Not
there's a chance.
Game 7 in Boston. I think the situation is way too big for Binnington, and he's been the only difference in the series, and not in a good way. I don't think he's been great.
He had one really good game and they won that game.
Yeah, he stole one in Boston from was a game.
The last one, game 5.
Game
Game 5,
yeah.
he was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially in the first period, he had to be.
he's got to play that way in Boston again. But it's gonna be a loud arena. I think that game's gonna hinge on Binnington. The Blues played well all game. I think they got behind at the end. We saw them really struggling defensively because they were going all in. Like that fourth goal, I think it was, and it was like nobody in front of the net. Like they were really just pushing to score goals.
Let me just be cliche though, because you talk about how loud the building is and whatever. If they can get one early, it's kind of like what Boston did because St. Louis was fired up in Game 6. Cup was in the building, and then they 5-on-3 and they scored.
Binnington's a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a big spot for him.
Do you know the story of Jordan Binnington?
Not
That
really.
he wasn't even going to be the guy. Like they have that Huso as a prospect in their system. So obviously they had Jake Allen. They had like Chad Johnson at some point, and they had
And
this,
Jake Allen was the new hot guy for them. He
and they
played so
had
well
this
before.
Huso kid, and when everybody got hurt, Binnington got kind of called up. Well, the Blues tried to send him down to the coast, and he refused to go. He said, "I'm not going to the coast. Loan me out to an AHL team." So he ends up playing in the AHL in Texas because he refused to go to the East Coast Hockey League. So they kind of did that they did with Molson. They kept his rights, but saw if an AHL team would take him on loan. And he plays in the AHL, comes up, and I think his first game was a shutout. And then they just kind of gave him the net to ride the hot hand, and he wins his first 10 starts. He was not even on the management's radar. They tried to, if he goes to the East Coast Hockey League, he's never seeing the NHL. He's going to
it's
just be
over.
buried.
Yeah.
And he refused to go, played well in the AHL. But the only reason he really got a chance was due to injury. Comes in and rips off 10 straight games, and here we are. So crazy story that
This is kind of a hot take, but after he got pulled in was it game 3, I would have stayed with Jake Allen.
Allen wasn't good a lot of the season though.
Just for the experience. I think it's in the. I haven't watched a lot of the West Coast hockey or the Blues even in playoffs. I haven't seen it. I don't think Bennett looks that great. I don't think besides game 5 when he played pretty good. But I think he's one thing hurting the Blues. I think one thing holding him back. He has not a lot of really good goals.
But Jake Allen last year, the only reason Carter Hutton said pretty exclusively that the reason he didn't see the net more is Jake Allen was their guy. They just paid him. They gave him a ticket. So they gave Jake Allen this big ticket, and I guess management said to Hutton, like, yeah, you've been playing well, but Jake Allen's our guy. He's our starter. And so Hutton probably outplayed Jake Allen last year, but Allen kind of got to keep the net because they just paid him, and now Allen got his job taken by
The crazy part is if Carter Hutton stays in St. Louis and takes like a team-friendly deal for another year, they are not in the Stanley Cup right now because Jordan Binnington never gets a play.
got him there, yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. That's how it goes.
St.
right?
Louis and how bad St. Louis was so bad for
January
like half
3rd,
the season.
last
It was
place.
incredible.
Last place.
And that pick is looking real good too.
They were the opposite of the Sabres. at that point, the Sabres were looking like a lock for the playoffs, and St. Louis was like we were going to have St. Louis's pick Oh, it looks so good. It looks
Wasn't
so
St.
good.
Louis's pick lottery protected?
When do they get
I don't
good?
even remember, honestly.
When do they get good?
End of January.
No, when they brought in Berube.
That's after
They fired Mike Yeo and brought in Craig Berube, and
a mid-season switch.
I didn't know you were allowed to do that.
No, I think it works.
Imagine mid-season changing your coaches and making the playoffs. Who would do that? Not us. That's for sure.
I would have fired Houses so quick last year. At least 3 different times I would have fired him.
I think you wanted to fire
Who
him
do
on the
you bring
podcast every single week
Not really. Oh, that's you got Labat and then
until you weren't.
till I wasn't. Yeah, it was a little bit after the win streak when you started seeing the shortcomings.
Yeah, I think last year we were fine with him until, I mean, it just started falling off with him when the team just 10-game winning streak. I mean, Bill was right about that when it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And I think it more exposed the weaknesses of the team than anything else.
But first,
And
sorry, go ahead.
As the season went on, it became more and more obvious that Housley needed to go and probably would have been better rather than later.
My first "what are you doing" move was like taking Palmville off the Skinner Eichel line, because he was scoring and he wasn't playing poorly. That they lost a game, and then it's a results-based league, or whatever. Like, and they took him off, and then he didn't do anything for the rest of the year, pretty much. I don't know. Then they put him back on his line for a couple games later in the year, and he started scoring again. It's weird.
I can't imagine why. Definitely no coincidence.
You want to talk about the NBA playoffs a little bit?
I do. So, Steve, before we cut it and went to the interview with Kieran, Steve was showing me that Kevin Durant re-injured his leg tonight. And I'm a big hockey guy. Obviously, you guys have listened to me talk about hockey for the last hour. I love hockey. I'm enjoying these NBA playoffs far more than the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. And I've never felt that way in my life before, but this year I am. And I don't know if it's just because there's a natural storyline with the Warriors dynasty versus Kawhi Leonard, who got injured, trying to get back, who got scumbagged, trying to beat the Warriors a couple of years ago in San Antonio, Toronto, in a country who's never had an NBA Finals team, or the fact that the officiating in the Stanley Cup playoffs has been absolute dog shit, has ruined it for me a little bit. I'm really enjoying watching the NBA Finals more than I think I ever have in my life. And it's cool to get into a sport I don't watch nearly as much, but part of me wishes I cared that much about the I'm much more excited for this Game 5 happening right now and any future NBA Finals games than I am about even Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, because I feel like Boston's just going to win that in a landslide. That might just be me. I don't know if anyone else thinks that St.
no,
Louis has
because
a
I'm ready
chance,
for
but-
Game 7. I'm fired up. I don't know.
I'm looking forward to it. I think the reffing of the playoffs has been a story. I think just got to find the right way to ref them, because there's this hockey thing like, let them play. It's the playoffs. Let them play. But in a sense, that's when you start choosing penalties. That's what's happened this year. Is like, and that's the issue. I think the way it's going this year, they need to just call the game. Mm-hmm. Like
Just read the rules.
Part of being a good team is not just being the better team and the team that's just letting them play. Like, part of being a good team is not taking bad penalties.
I mean, just off the top of my head, I can think about the major that was given to Vegas for the Pavelski thing. Now, I know you're not supposed to give up 4
They
goals on a major,
penalized the bleeding head on the ice.
but that's not a major. I think about Noel Akari getting tripped up by Bozak and the play going on in St. Louis getting that goal, even though I think that Akari sold it like it got shot. Yeah. There's just so many things like that happen in the playoffs, and it takes the shine away. It makes it feel like teams that are very deserving got more than they deserved. And that ruins a little bit of the narrative for me. And there's been a lot of scumbag hits to the head both ways. You got Marchand going low in Game 6. You got a bunch, like St. Louis having a guy suspended, and a bunch of other hits to the head too. Shen directly into some guy's back yesterday. Nostrom, I think it was. Directly between the numbers.
There have been a few suspendable hits this series. And it's the rule. Suspend them.
Yeah,
there's just a Stanley Cup.
Hockey is weird because it is the only sport that
different
you can
rule
think of that has a different rule book for the playoffs than the regular season.
I'm okay if they want to let him play a little bit. Maybe don't call every single thing. If a guy is a little bit more physical, maybe let them play.
Maybe little bit more.
Yeah, but hockey is
a little bit more stick
so
work
far.
hooking.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Little bit, yeah.
But hockey is swung so far the other direction now that it's kind of accepted that they throw the rule book out in the playoffs, and now they just keep pushing the envelope more and more. I think it really needs to be a focus next year, and it would be frustrating for a little bit. They just need to call the games the same. First guy who takes a liberty in Game 1 of the playoffs sits for 5, and you don't talk about it, and no one does it.
That's what I'm saying. Just call it the way it should be called, because I get the let them play thing, and there's a different kind of rule for the playoffs, but it's the rules, and like I said, I think part of being a great team is not taking bad penalties. If you take bad penalties, you got to pay for it.
Now, the other side is you have to make sure the referees are calling penalties correctly, which is the inverse of this, and I don't know that I'm confident that the NHL officiating is going to do that either, but...
Back to Game 6?
The one that just happened?
Game 5?
Game 5.
The trip.
The Bozak-Kari trip? Yeah.
I don't think that was a penalty. I don't think it was a collision. Bozak was coming out from the corner, cutting, and then it was like a collision. There's a guy pushing him. And then
I mean, I think that was a trip on Bozak, but the counterpoint is something you pointed out to me.
It was not an intentional trip. Like it wasn't like it was like a collision.
Well,
it wasn't
not an intentional trip, but
the intentional trip to me was moments after.
That's the thing. If you want to be mad about that, DeBrus trips a guy coming back on the other goal.
Did the same thing. Missed a hit, stuck his leg out, kept the puck, and the Blues player got penalized for trying to jump around him, hit him with a stick, and they scored 3 seconds later.
So that's the thing. It's inconsistent. Like no team, except for maybe San Jose. San Jose got a couple of gifts, but no other team could say that they benefited from bad officiating. Just everyone gets mutually screwed, and it takes the fun out. Like there's gonna be, you just know. I know deep down inside of myself, there's gonna be something in Game 7 that is just not gonna sit right. Something's not gonna be called, or something's gonna be called incorrectly to swing the pendulum back the other way, and either way, it's going to impact the game. And we should not be sitting here talking about officiating as one of the things that we remember the most about the playoffs. The official is just an extension of the rule book there to make sure that no one kills each other. We should not have any idea what these people are doing or who they are.
That's the thing. A lot of this stuff, I think you're right in a sense, but I think a lot of it really gets blown up a portion. Is a small no call turns into a big thing because if someone loses, they're going to go right to that thing. Mm-hmm. Like the Bruins did for this one we just talked about. They lost the game, so that's that reason they lost the game, even though they don't talk about what happened moments after. Literally minutes after. But it's just the way, it's just fandom. I don't think it's that big of a deal. That was not that big of a deal, in my opinion. I don't.
It's
but
just it's
the Pavelski thing. That one's goofy because they penalized
the result,
injury,
not the intention.
result.
Yeah.
If he's not laying there half dead, leaking blood on the ice, it's a 2-minute penalty.
If he's not bleeding, I don't think they call anything.
Oh, they'll call something.
Because the referee didn't have his hand up on the hit. Which is why Vegas fans were pretty rightfully mad, I think, about that.
Yeah.
And I wanted San Jose to win the cup. I was pretty open about that, but they got gifted a couple times.
San Jose had all the cards in their hand.
They did.
And then they paid for it in the end. Half the team got hurt. I mean, karma comes around.
And then there was that offsides call against Colorado and all that stuff they got too, which was goofy. And
I think basketball I've watched more of basketball this season, this finals, than I ever have in the past 10 years.
The other part, I forgot who tweeted this recently. There was someone who tweeted, and it's so true, how much better the NBA does of making their star players feel like stars. Mm-hmm. In the NHL, like, they weren't ready for St. Louis to be in the Stanley Cup. They have to pretend that they were always big fans of Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko. These guys got no shine, no publicity, no primetime games, and now they just got to act like the NBA. There's a star player on basically every team, and the NBA makes you aware of it.
The NHL markets its sport and its teams. The NBA markets its players.
I was going to say, NHL is not good at marketing. Yeah, just said it. I was going to say.
But where's the money in this? Like, how many people are out there on the shot right outside of Jurassic Park in Toronto right now, cheering for Kawhi or Kyle Lowry? Like, obviously they're fans of the team, but they get invested in the individuals. The league markets the individuals.
Toronto's just chewing for a championship.
That's part of it.
People are in basketball fans at Jurassic Park right now.
I mean,
Toronto's just
the Leafs were so bad, you know.
I think that there'd be many more people down there if the Maple Leafs were to stand the cup.
The thing is, it's not even just Toronto. Like there's gatherings like that, like from Nova Scotia to Manitoba. They showed on the game.
Well, there's such Canadian pride. Yeah. America super lacks that.
Well, it's also tough when there's 31 American teams or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. My next day was also was it just like 6 Canadian teams? How many are in the NBA?
There's only one Canadian
Toronto,
team. There used to be 2, but the Grizzlies.
It's a big thing for the whole country. But yeah, that's that. That's a fun show.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Mike is pretty cool Ducks hat. Mike, you're wearing Duck colors tonight.
Yeah.
Welcome to our Buffalo Sports Podcast with a Flyers and Ducks fan.
I'm 50-50.
Should be 60-40.
Yeah, it used to be like 70-30 Philly, so take what you can get.
Yeah, but don't forget I am all in Bills. I don't got any California connection to any team there.
I wish I had another football team because, God, the Bills are depressing sometimes.
You got anything else you want to talk about, Steve?
No.
Okay.
That was decisive.
Thanks.
No.
So we got homework.
Yeah.
No.
So you heard it here first, folks. Next week on the show, all four of us, plus whoever else might be here. I do have one more thing before we wrap, by the way.
Oh, my
No,
gosh.
it's important.
I'm kidding.
It's important.
God, your ego is
I
fucking
know,
huge
it's
tonight,
gigantic.
dude.
It's way bigger than my dick, by the way. Way bigger.
We could end right there.
We could. That's a good ender.
And you can find us on social media.
Build our own teams on Cat Friendly. And did you actually? No, I thought you were going to actually end the show there. Before we go, and because it's the last time that it'll be relevant, he hasn't been on the show in a little bit, but Nick, who has been a part of this podcast for a very long time, done everything from trivia to reading through his phone while we talk hockey to many other important contributions to this podcast and his continued success, will be, by the time we record another episode, moving for work to Silver Spring, Maryland, and will not be here on the show unless we get him every once in a while on the internet, and he will be missed. I want to end on that because that's important.
I'm sad Nick's leaving.
I know, I'm sad too.
He was just here before you guys got here. I was a little sad. And he gave me some foam. We got some foam. We're going to dampen the sound in this room. It's going to get some really good sound quality.
So, hey, Jeff, do you got his number?
Nick's number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
We
know.
can prank call him.
Ooh, let's give him some more meat. Yes, there. Yes. So Nick's first time leaving the podcast, I don't know if he has to do this. Nick's first time leaving the show, I wanted to send him off with the proper thank you.
Yeah.
And I posted a Craigslist ad for free meat. I said that I'm moving out of town. I have a freezer full of meat and I can't take with me. Who wants this free meat? And I put Nick's phone number.
Oh, my goodness.
And apparently he was like died of the morning. He had like 80 plus missed phone
Oh
calls, a
my
bunch of texts,
goodness.
and like more email.
Oh, my goodness.
He's wanting to get his free meat.
Free.
Nick, a podcast OG, who is the reason that I'm even here in a very roundabout way. I only met you guys through Nick. So it's funny how that works, and we wish him all the best in his fancy new job down in Maryland. The trivia legacy of the podcast will have to continue that some way, somehow. I feel like it's an important part of our football season, but he'll be missed.
And we got Nicholas John.
Yo, what up?
It is Nicholas's last day on the podcast. Nick, tell us where the fuck you're going.
Where am I going? Well, I'm staying in Buffalo, but the trivia that everybody has come to know and enjoy and hate at the same time. Depending on the questions, we're expanding our business, so we're going.
Game time. It's game time. We got a new game on the podcast. This game is called Meet and Greet. All right. So it's Nick's last podcast.
Sweet.
So we're going to get to know him.
Sure.
And as far as I know, you had met some people this morning, calling about some free meat.
Was that you? You dickhead. I knew it was somebody, and I was trying to figure out who it was. Somebody. I'll give the background on this because I got about I think it was about 25 phone calls and about 60 text messages this morning at about 8:30 asking if they could have my freezer with meat. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So it took me a second, and I knew I had an idea of who it was. I thought it was one of the three of you guys, or it could have been Mike, but he's busy in Vegas.
Well, Mike. Well, yeah. Your brother played a role.
Okay.
Because he gave me your correct phone number.
Ah, yes.
When Chuck gave Justin your old phone number.
Oh,
that
cool.
no longer existed.
Oh, my 716-913.
So I was
number?
able to
Nice.
obtain the real one, the C-Bus one, and then gave it to him. And he told me, I think it was on Sunday night, that he was going to.
So-
he
That's
had
pretty.
this plan.
I mean,
for
it
this.
was funny.
So
And I was like, that's pretty good.
obviously it's
Not
Nick's
gonna
last
lie.
podcast, and we want to set him off the right way.
Well, I appreciate that.
So we got him a little gift. I put up an ad on Craigslist saying that he was moving across country and had a freezer full of frozen meat.
And he had a picture of said freezer with said meat.
Yes, a lot of meat. I said you had sirloin steaks, strip steaks, ribeye steaks,
Hamburger patties.
ducks, lamb,
That's a lot
sausage.
of good meat.
That
hamburger
was.
patties.
I wish I had that.
So you got how many phone calls and texts?
I'm
Do
gonna.
you have any
look-
voicemails?
I do. I deleted them all. I didn't even listen to them.
I want
I
to
knew-
put him at the end of the podcast, man.
I know they were because they all get sent to my my Gmail, and I just like went through and anything that was of Google Voice, I selected all and deleted them. And I don't think the people that called would really appreciate you putting them on the podcast, but
I don't care.
I think I had about 15 voicemails. I had text messages. I must have flagged the post about 20 times. I emailed Craigslist about 4 or 5 times. I'm like, somebody put my personal information. They put in my name was incorrect, which was nice. I appreciate that. But yeah,
What was the name you used?
Mark.
I made up a name.
Mark from Williamsville.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like just a dude who just he's
I even
leaving, so
made
it's just super generic.
And I was surprised it's you because I don't take you for the literate type. So it was actually it was written very well.
I actually had an apology email prepared to you, but
Did you?
so-
You should have responded.
No, I was going
because I
to.
did email it. I emailed you.
I know. I saw it. I made a special email address for this.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, it's called buffalomeatlover@gmail.com.
Believe it or not, that wasn't taken, which was kind of surprising, actually.
And some of the text messages, like if you just took them out of context, like they were like, "I want your meat." What the fuck is going on?
So I was going to respond to you, but then I thought you'd find it sketchy that there's a Columbus number with a buffalo.
Well, yeah, and that's
meat
why I was
lover.
like, "Why are
So
these people calling me?"
He's
Like,
very passionate.
So I was going to apologize. I said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Nicholas. I was wondering why I wasn't receiving any inquiries on this ad. I'm very sorry for this annoying inconvenience. I cannot believe I input the incorrect phone number. Ironically enough, I'm an editor for a small paper, and proofreading is how I make my living. I'm moving to a bigger city for a better opportunity. I'm very sorry, Nicholas. As an apology, if you want any meat, you have first dibs on anything you like. All the meat is fresh."
"Oh, Justin,
I'm sure frozen but fresh, flash frozen.
you guys all know you're getting something, right?
I had nothing to do with it.
It was all me.
It's
I-
gonna
I
be
just-
you
I
and
just
you
approved
and my
of
brother."
it. I just approved of it, and your brother had no idea.
I
until
gave
he
him the
hears
wrong
this.
phone number.
All right.
That was the extent
Your-
of my involvement.
Your brother has
And it's
no
all coming
idea.
down
It
on you,
actually
Justin.
Should be just him.
It's coming-
I'm prepared.
Yeah, you better be. It's gonna.
I said-
it's
I
when
said-
you least expect it.
I expect return fire.
When
I
you
do.
least expect it.
I got a bunch of emails too from that email
Did you?
address. This one guy's like, wrong number posted. I'll take the meat though, and I'll buy the freezer too.
Yeah, because I posted something about I think maybe 10 minutes after you posted it, saying like it was the wrong
Yeah.
number.
He posted another ad saying, "Don't
Don't call or text.
You're like, oh, I knew he would do this. He would, because you're the proactive type when it comes to that. Some people would just.
I
let
was
it
sitting
go
there
and-
in bed, like getting phone calls. I'm like, "What? This has got to stop. I got to figure out a way to kill this." And I Googled it and how to like email Craigslist like the right way. And apparently you're supposed to put like 911 in the.
oh wow, that's not
Like
extreme.
they have a thing where it's like if your information's posted, like protocol. But
Well, that's exciting.
yeah, well, thanks for that, guys.
So we'll talk Bills football soon.
Yeah,
You
but
already deleted all the voicemails?
every single one.
God damn.
Every single
I
one.
wanted to put him at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, you don't deserve it, asshole. Well, yeah. So